We have the seat right up here.
I've learned people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. There's no greater agony than burying an untold story inside you.
Welcome to the 31st annual celebration of Fenn School's Martin Luther King Day. Today is a day set apart to celebrate the dreams and the ideals that continue to shape our nation and all of humanity. As you may have guessed from the video on Monday, we want to emphasize the importance of history, places, and most of all, service. There are so many places in our world that we walk by every day that have significant historical value. Our world is an amazing place with wonderful things and wonderful people. But we're so concerned with the busyness of our everyday lives that we fail to reflect on the wonder of the world. From the swaying of the branches as it cools the air we breathe, to the energy of our own heartbeat as it lets us live. Our world is amazing. So for today, let's put away our iPhones and our iPads and stop with our social media and reflect on everything that's around us. Think about the importance of history in our lives, about the importance of places in our lives, and that history brings character and humanity into the places of our lives. And imagine a world without them.
If places like the Old North Bridge, where rebels who called themselves Minutemen started the flames of freedom to march forward to American independence, the Lincoln Memorial, where Martin Luther King gave his most memorable speech under the gaze of the great emancipator Abraham Lincoln, the Boston Memorial of the 54th Massachusetts Battalion of black soldiers who distinguished themselves during the American Civil War. Now, the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Imagine if all these places were not there. The essence of our forebears, the reasons why we exist at all, would be silent to us and to those who follow us. These places of history celebrate victories, defeats, past lives, audience when it comes to history, events, and places. But all the voices of the past matter, as do the lessons that they teach us.
Today, as in past Martin Luther King assemblies, we are gathered here to tell an essential part of our country's history. This tradition honors the part of American history that has, at times, been overlooked. We hope that even when all of us gathered here in Ward Hall depart from our wonderful campus, this tradition will continue so that the stories of brave men and women and places that represent courage and sacrifice will not just be evoked for today, but for all time. Through music and poetry, people over the years have retold their identities without shying away from all of their history. They recognize the mistakes that have tarnished the human spirit. They have waded into the discomfort of such stories and have learned what time and again our teachers and educators here at Fenn tell us. We learn better, grow stronger, and become resilient when we confront our weaknesses and struggles with courage.
So, today as we come together to celebrate the African American people and to celebrate our nation seemingly divided by racism, anger, disappointment, injustice, and inequalities, we must realize, as President Obama once said, the American story is one of suffering and delight, one of fear but also of hope, of wandering in the wilderness and then seeing on the horizon a glimmer of the promised land. It is in this embrace of truth, as best as we can know it, in the celebration of the entire American experience, where real patriotism lies. President Bush also said, "A great nation doesn't shy from the truth. It should strengthen us. It emboldens us. It should fortify us. It is an act of patriotism to understand where we've been."
So, as you sing and celebrate today, remember some of the images from Monday's video. Some of the images, stories, and poetry today will try and echo the emotions and songs that places like Black Wall Street, the Lorraine Hotel, the Selma Bridge, the Ohio River, and even this hall, Ward Hall, represent. In this hall, many people have shared themselves, their history, their stories, and we have loved, laughed, cried, danced, and celebrated too. We welcome parents, friends, ideas, stories, and our ancestors. I would also like to take this occasion to thank our friends from Noble and Grano who grace this occasion with their presence year after year. And to all of you I will say, here is a place we all belong. Here is a place of safety. Our father's house, our mother's house, our sister's house, our brother's house. Welcome.
That was a song from South Africa of protest and hope. All around the world, people long for freedom and acceptance. Between 1955 and 1968, it was in that spirit that Martin Luther King Jr. changed America. His captivating power of speech and strong leadership gave people the courage and hope to keep protesting peacefully, even when others resorted to violence. These protests led to the creation of new laws that ended the practice of institutional discrimination. Dr. King played a key role in the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. These laws allowed blacks to vote freely and without intimidation and opened the doors to many others. We are here today to celebrate this legacy and the lives of the many men and women who created a fairer, gentler, and more inclusive country. Let us welcome our friends from Noble and Greeno to sing Bonse Aba, a song of hope and promise from Zambia.
In the mid-60s, as the civil rights movement gathered strength, the song, "We Shall Overcome," became the official anthem of the movement. The song began as a folk song and a work song. Enslaved Africans in the fields would sing, "I'll be all right someday," as they endured slavery and captivity. In 1901, a Methodist minister, Charles Tindley, published a newer version of the song. When people started using and learning songs to protest racism, discrimination, and bigotry in the civil rights movement, a more inclusive version of the song emerged. The word "we" was used in place of the word "I."
In the decades since, the song has been embraced by civil rights and pro-democracy movements in dozens of nations worldwide. Its message of hope and unity has been sung in dozens of languages, in presidential palaces, and in prisons, and it continues to strengthen people who are struggling to be free. Let's hear the original version of "We Shall Overcome." It's called "I'll Be Alright."
I'll
Here are two quotes that are just two qualities we all could pay attention to: service and responsibility. Martin Luther King often talked about the need of citizens of the world to be in service of each other. Here's a famous quote from Martin Luther King about helping each other. Everyone can be great because everyone can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make a subject to serve. You don't have to know about Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know about the second theory of thermodynamics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love, and you could be that servant.
This is a quote by Reverend Martin Niemöller, formerly a supporter of Adolf Hitler, but later strongly opposed the Nazi government and was imprisoned in 2 harsh German concentration camps. He narrowly escaped execution, and after his imprisonment, he expressed his deep regrets about not having done enough to help the victims of Nazi. In Germany, they first came for the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Catholics. I didn't speak up because I was a Protestant. Then they came for me. By that time, there was no one left to speak up.
The next song, Wade in the Wild, was used by Harriet Tubman to tell escaping enslaved people to get off the trail and into the wild, so that dogs slave catchers used could not sniff out the trail. The line more significantly referred to the old biblical story about an angel who had a habit of coming down to play in a body of water called Bethesda. It was believed that the angel would come down in certain seasons and stir up the water. Any sick person who stepped into the water immediately after was made well. The Ohio River, with its promise of a new life of freedom and prosperity, only needed to be crossed. And it also referred to the hope and healing that Bethesda would give.
to Sing by James Weldon Johnson. Sometimes the mist overhangs my path, and blackening clouds about me cling. But oh, I have a magic way to turn the gloom to a cheerful day. I softly sing. And if the way grows darker still, shattered by sorrow's summer wings, with a great defiance in my throat, I pierce the darkness with a note, and sing, and sing. I dread not over the broken past, nor dread whatever times might bring. No nights are dark, no days are long, while in my heart there swells a song, and I can sing.
I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Yes, I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. You used to rock me in the cradle of your arms. You said you'd hold me till the pains of life were gone. You said you'd comfort me in times like these, and now I need you, and now I need you. And you are gone. So I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Since you've gone and left me, there's been so little beauty, but I know I saw it clearly through your eyes. Now the world outside is such a cold and bitter place. Here inside I have few things that will console. And when I try to hear your voice above the storms of life, then I remember that I was told. Yes, I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Yes, I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. And think on the things that made me feel so wonderful when I was young. I think on the things that made me laugh, made me dance, made me sing. I think on the things that made me grow into a being full of pride. Think on these things, for they are true. And I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I thought that you were gone, but now I know you're with me. You are the voice that whispers all I need. And I will please and thank you, and a smile will take me far. I know that I am you, and you are me, and we are one. I know that who I am is numbered in each grain of sand. I know that I've been blessed again and again and again. Yes, I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Yes, I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my
American Museum in Washington, D.C., President Obama addressed the importance of history and our roles as guardians in accurate and fair history while recognizing the humanity in the telling of history. He said, "Beneath us, this building reaches down 70 feet, its roots spreading far wider and deeper than any other tree on this mall. And on its lowest level, after you walk past the remnants of a slave ship, after you reflect on the immortal declaration that all men are created equally, you can see a block of stone. On top of this block of stone lies a historical marker, weathered by the ages. It reads, General Andrew Jackson and Henry Clay spoke from this slave block during the year 1830. I want you to think about this. Consider what this artifact tells us about history, about how it's told and what can be cast aside.
Lord, how come? Lord, Lord, how come me here, Lord? How come, Lord? How come? Lord, how come me here? Lord, how come me here? Lord, how come me here? Wish I never been born. Working the field from sunrise, working the field till sundown, work till my head is aching, work till my back is breaking. Lord, Lord, how come me here? Wish I never been born.
On a stone where day after day, for years, men and women were torn apart from their spouses or their child, shackled, bound, bought, sold, bid, like cattle on a stone, worn down by the tragedy of 1,000 bare feet for a very long time. And yet, the one thing we considered important, the singular thing we once chose to commemorate history as a plaque, were the two unmemorable speeches of two powerful men. And that's why I think this block of stone explains why this museum is so necessary. Because that same object, reframed, put into context, tells us so much more.
This museum helps to tell a richer and fuller story of who we are. It helps us better understand the lives, yes, of the president, but also the slave, the industrialist, but also the porter, the keeper of the status quo, but also the activist seeking to overthrow that status quo, or the teacher or the cook alongside the statesman. And by knowing this other story, we better understand ourselves and each other. It binds us together. It reaffirms that all of us are American, that the African American story is not somehow separate from the larger American story. It is not the underside of the American story. It is central to the American story. That our glory derives not only from our most obvious triumphs, but from wrested triumph from tragedy, and been able to remake ourselves again and again and again. In accordance with our highest ideals, I too am American.
The next song was created by enslaved Africans and was passed down for generations before ever being written. One thing we know for sure is that the lyrics of spirituals often had many meanings. For example, one line in the next song reads, "There ain't but one train on this track. It runs to heaven." This is likely referring to the Underground Railroad system and the escape to freedom. "Every Time I Feel the Spirit" continues to be a song of hope.
Thank
I Rise by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the hope and the dream of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise.
Bob Dylan was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Barack Obama on April 26, 2012. And just a few weeks ago, the Swedish Academy awarded him with the Nobel Prize for Literature for having created new poetic expressions in the great American song tradition. The honor was due in no small part to the many powerful songs he wrote. Songs like Blowing in the Wind still ask the same hard question 50 years later. Today, this song is sung in many languages and in many countries. Here's a reggae version of Blowing in the Wind, arranged by the Abyssinians of Jamaica. Join us during the chorus.
Before work in nonviolent protests and civil rights, Dr. King has received many awards and honors, most notably the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. But in 1968, Dr. King was shot dead at the Lorraine Hotel in Tennessee. A few days before his death, he talked about how he would like to be remembered.
Every now and then, I guess we all realistically think about that day when we will be victimized by what is life's final common denominator. That's something that we call death. We all think it, and every now and then I think about my own death and my own funeral, and I don't think of it in a morbid sense. And every now and then I ask myself, what is it that I would want said? And so I leave the word to you this morning. If any of you are there when I meet my day, I don't want a long funeral. And if you get someone to deliver the eulogy, tell them not to make it too long. And every now and then, I wonder what I would want them to say. Tell them not to mention that I have a Nobel Peace Prize. That isn't important. Tell them not to mention that I have 300 or 400 other awards. That's not important. Tell them not to mention where I went to school. I'd like for somebody to mention that day that Martin Luther King Jr. gave his life serving others. I would like for somebody to mention that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to love somebody. I want you to say on that day that I tried to be right on the war question. And I want you to say on that day that I did try to feed the hungry. I want you to say on that day that I did try in my life to clothe those who were naked. And I want you to say on that day that I did try in my life to visit those who were in prison. I want you to say that I tried to love and serve humanity. Yes. If you want to say I was a drum major, say I was a drum major for justice. Say I was a drum major for peace. A drum major for righteousness. And all the other shallow things won't matter. I won't have any money to leave behind. I won't have the fine or luxurious things in life to leave behind. But I just want to leave a committed life behind. And that's all I want to say.
that we bleed through. Somewhere in the dream we had an epiphany. Now we right the wrongs in history. War individually, it takes the wisdom of the elders and young people's energy. Welcome to the story we call victory, the coming of the Lord. My eyes have seen the glory. Someday, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory, 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 one day.
The African American narrative is also filled with periods of hope and promise. This narrative is woven into the American story. As a country, we are still finding ourselves and renewing ourselves through each challenge. Yes, at times we get discouraged, but history tells us we will get better because of you and me. Through the most difficult of times, acts of war, natural disasters, unspeakable tragedies, political upheavals, Americans have always risen to the occasion caring for each other. We have learned that the closest bonds are not drawn by mutual strengths, but by mutual need. Through these lessons, we have witnessed the blessings of learning to lean on each other, to give with joy and to receive with grace. We have seen what can be, what should be, and what would be. The dream lives on, the journey continues, the destination draws closer, and the sun will surely rise on the day we shall overcome.
Each moment in
And now we come to the point, like all Fenn assemblies, where we pause and reflect on everything that we've seen. I invite you to ask yourself, what can I do in my own little way to bring peace and harmony into this earth? President Obama once said, "Let us not forget that routine discrimination and Jim Crow laws aren't relics of ancient history. They are not a blink in the eye of humanity. It was just yesterday." And so, we should not be surprised that not all the healing is done. But we shouldn't despair that there's still work to do. And knowing the larger story should remind us how remarkable that the progress we have made truly is. And let that inspire us to further progress. And so, we should strive to listen to each other. But more importantly than that, to see each other. Black or white, Latino or Native American, European or Asian American. See how all of our stories are bound together. And bound together with women in America, and workers in America, and entrepreneurs in America, and LGBTQ people in America. And tell yourself in unison that I too am America. Imagine if we all said with one voice that we care. We care enough to give. We care enough to reach out. We care enough to hold on to our dreams for brotherhood and for sisterhood. We care enough to do no harm. We care enough to say, "Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin with me, and we shall overcome."
incredible. Don't you think so? After we say thanks, they come to the stage again and we can thank them. I also want to thank Seth Putnam and his band. Ross Jones, who's here, if you're looking at all these microphones, is because he's recording this to make a CD. We're going to use this at the auction, so tell your parents to buy that CD. Great. And finally, I want to make sure that I thank my colleagues up here on this stage. They had only 2 or 3 practices, I would say maybe 2. And yet they did a marvelous job. And of course, Noble and Peter, thank you.
Isn't it remarkable to have guests among us who so elevate things as well? So thank you again. We're really honored. So each year we join together, gather here in the hall, and really celebrate and reflect on the inspiration of Martin Luther King and so many others in the world who do make a difference, and asking ourselves always, what can we do? Mr. Kobloch is constantly asking himself what he can do to make a difference in the world, but also here at Fenn School. And each year, out of nothing, he creates what each one of us has witnessed over the past 20 years or more for the Martin Luther King Assembly. The beauty of it, the inspiration of it, the creativity of it, the energy of it, the vision of it comes from Mr. Kobloch. So in closing, I think as Sammy very eloquently encouraged us to do, let us reflect as we always do at the close of our gatherings, and let us be inspired by the words of Martin Luther King and the strong convictions and sentiments that were conveyed here today. And above all things, always asking ourselves, and I ask you in this moment to seriously engage this question of what can you do now and in the future in your own promising lives to make a difference for good in this world. Everyone I ask, just let's reflect briefly, quietly on that. Thank you, and thank you for really being part of this in wonderful ways, all the students and teachers and faculty, and we really appreciate as well. I won't call you guests, you're an important part of our community, some of you the parents who are up above and relatives and friends, so thank you for being with us. What we're going to do right now is allow our guests, and everyone else will just sit quietly before we dismiss, but allow our guests to be able to exit before the river of students starts flowing, so please do that. Boys, we'll just wait a minute before we move.